Jenny Slate, comedy special seasoned professional, has her talk about cross-country road trips, motherhood, and dairy. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby, and I wanted to start off by asking you, Jenny, what was the biggest challenge in this for you in putting this special together?
What was the biggest challenge? I mean, my central challenge is often my stage fright. Um, I I definitely take a lot of risks, and I know that. Like I often speak freely. I speak about things that are really personal, but that to me feels like there's a sense of like goodness and rightness that comes with that. But stage fright, much like a panic attack or like anxiety, um, really makes you feel like something is kind of like essentially wrong. So I think that actually is my biggest, I think that's my biggest challenge. I really like working through, like I never write my stand-up out, but I do like bullet points, and I really like figuring out a progression that makes sense. I really love um I really love finding a way to show people the way that I think and the way that I assess and review and remember my own experience in my life. But the stage fright is something that that just it feels like another part, a different thing. And it doesn't feel like it has a function or a purpose that's helpful. And that is always um my hardest challenge.
Yeah. What maybe scared you the most, or was the biggest risk you feel you took in this special?
Um, usually when I'm going into a performance, if there's something I want to talk about, I it's not even that I try not to question it. It's that I don't. It's more like yeah, I feel like there's just a green light from inside of me, and I say like go, like but I think when I look back on it, the the biggest risk was when I look back on it, I'm like, whoa, you did something, first of all, which a lot of people will say is like only for a certain number of people, which is to like tell a birth story. Um, it it's unfortunate, but unfortunately, I don't think we're over the really like limited and limiting perspective, which is that like stories about women or people with reproductive systems that include like a uterus and all the stuff in there, that's only for those people. So it can be like scary to be like, I'm going to do a special about where they're like a big part of it is a birth story, because perhaps that will make a lot of people feel that it's not for them or whatever. But I didn't really feel that that was risky. What I think is a risk that I took that I didn't realize that I was taking was that I told my birth story the way that I think about it,
Mm.
which is that it's filled with all these weird mental tangents and memories that don't seem to attach themselves. Like when you would think about it, you wouldn't think a memory of getting an audition or a memory of having diarrhea on a seventh grade orchestra trip would have anything to do with the birth story. But when you really think about the way we are as people, that you from now, you are the same you, but with more experience, of course, as you were when you were 10.
Mhm.
And that like we a lot of like, although we're in the present, our memories make a lot of things actually simultaneous.
Mhm.
And I think that that was my instinct, was to say, like, even when I'm having really impactful singular experiences in adulthood, they're actually still kind of like weirdly making lateral grabs at things that happened to me in the past. And I guess it's risky to tell a story that way because people watching can be like, where's she going with this? And if you're a really um hyper springy performer like me, people could think maybe she's out of control. Um and I think it was a risk that I took to be like, I'm not out of control. I've got hands on the wheel, but like this unfortunately is what it's like to drive with me.
And I guess it's like then like so important that you do like and this can be something really satisfying when those seemingly disparate ideas get connected
Yeah.
and sort of the audience realizes how those two things connect in your head. Yeah, and I think also what I'd say is like there is something universal like about how our memories, how we connect different things from our lives. But it's
Yeah, and I really think like the happiest version of myself, the version that I want to show the world and say like this is me, is the person that isn't trying to compartmentalize, but the person who's trying to integrate.
mm,
And what I'm really interested in my work is being like what I'm working on in my therapy is what I'm working on stage. I mean, this really took it there because of course I like spoke about my therapist in this special, so I'm, I really took it to the center. But that it's like um the way I am as a thinker in life, I'm trying to give you a self-portrait of that experience on stage. I want more than anything to be a consistent person even while I change and have new experiences. Like I'm just like really into showing that because I believe that the version of myself and the version of many other people that allows for integration and allows for like really unexpected pockets within stories. Like, oh, this is the story about meeting my husband, but really it's kind of a story about fear, trust issues, and like a specific opinion about how I feel about bikes. That like you really get to know the real person if you allow for the most random shit to be in there. But it can also be scary to do that because you really risk being not just misunderstood, but like rejected
mm,
and perceived as someone who um is sloppy.
yeah, yeah. What did your therapist think of the special, Jenny?
She liked it. I mean, that's what she said.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
what
that, oh, that's
she
good.
told. Yeah, she told me she liked it.
Oh, nice. That's good. So, what did a part of you? You also you say in the special that part of you is a relentless optimist.
Hmm.
How does that inform your comedy?
It allows me to do it,
Yeah.
first of all. If I were a pessimist, I would not be doing comedy at all.
Mm,
It also informs the content because most of the stuff that I'm talking about are the things that I feel are my biggest successes. And my biggest successes have always been tied to my greatest fears and some of my largest misunderstandings or failures.
mm,
And that I'm really into talking about what makes me happy and what satisfies me, even if it's like, isn't it weird that this makes you happy? Isn't it weird that this thing makes me happy? Isn't it strange that I think about this as a success, or that this small moment of riding a bike in Amsterdam is like so incredibly important to me because it's a example of um participating in extreme bravery within a task that most people think is normal, but that you think is absolutely terrifying. Like,
mm,
optimism is everything to me.
mm,
Um, but I think I'm a relentless optimist. I don't think of myself as a foolish one, or really as,
mm.
um, yeah, or as like a someone who isn't considering the risk of being an optimist.
Yeah. I imagine as like a stand-up comic, you have to fail sometimes when you're working on material and when you're working in front of different audiences. Does that like sort of perspective of linking failure and success have an impact on like, do you need that to be a comic? Because you're gonna have times when you fail?
I don't know. I don't really know what each person needs to be a comic,
Well,
although I guess
do you
they
need
need
it?
to be funny. But
Yeah,
for me,
yeah,
what I need to feel is not necessarily like I don't feel like you need to have darkness in order to have light. But
yeah.
I what I feel is that, like, darkness and light, success and failure, um, all offer something. And that like when you make failure profane or like disgusting or embarrassing only, singularly, definitively embarrassing, definitively like bad, you obviously don't want even a small part of it. But for me, like I really like to see the elements of being alive as all offering something really interesting and of all also wanting to be included. And like, I think like we you could argue that people who are like incredibly unhappy are the people who like don't allow for any shadow
Mm,
or who like need to depend on an idea of like perfection or primacy.
mm,
And I I really like I function well in the opposite of those standards where it's like everything's allowed to be included. We all have to be responsible. If you're an artist and you want to say how you feel and you like are concerned with giving, like for me, I'm concerned with giving an accurate depiction in terms of how it looks inside here.
mm.
Uh, then like of course you have to use everything and you're totally screwed if you don't want to use or talk about your failures.
Yeah. What makes something funny for you, Jenny?
So, um, I love like the outrageous nestled within the boring or the everyday.
Mm,
Um, I think I think in retrospect, far away from the site of the event,
yeah.
that embarrassment and misunderstanding can be incredibly funny.
Mm.
Um, I don't like seek out embarrassment
Oh,
or humiliation, but I think God, I think the way that I can be positive in the face of disaster is so tender and pathetic and so funny and so wonderful. It's like the exact reason why my feelings get hurt and the exact reason why I'm thriving.
mm,
And I honestly just think like farts and poop are really funny. I think that people taking huge swings in the wrong direction, like confidence when there shouldn't be confidence, is hilarious.
mm.
Mm, yeah, and I think I think that extremes are really funny.
Yeah. What for you is one of the funnier or funniest moments in the special for you personally?
Oh, for me, I mean, probably what I think is the funniest. I really, really love talking about um when like aligning myself with the idea of like understanding like why an animal goes far away to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just like love that. And I really, really, I think it's funny because I relate to it. Like I think my whole special is funny, but I'm always my first performer.
Yeah.
Like if you were a kid that ever felt bullied or, like you didn't fit in, but you also still experienced like perception and pleasure of your perception, like you
Yeah.
might have kind of performed for yourself, or in my case like your grandmother, like so I my comedy is always first for my own taste, but I also just genuinely love performing the fantasy scene between my me and my therapist's imagined daughter.
Yeah.
That still makes me laugh so hard because it is so aggressive and outrageous.
Yeah.
And obviously like within a context of like fantasy, I think fantasies are so funny because they're so specific to the person and most of us wouldn't want them.
Mm. Yeah. No, it's good. Did you learn anything about yourself doing the special?
Yeah, I think I learned that well, I think of myself as a well-developed and distinct and singular individual. I actually just don't think it's appropriate or acceptable to think of myself as um outside of the large group of professionals working today.
Mm,
And I used to just kind of be like, oh, I do this, I just do this because I like it, but I'm not trying to do anything. This sort of like I would like not give myself legitimacy.
Mm.
And I think through this special, I learned how to give myself legitimacy through the act of seeing myself as specific rather than acceptable according to the definition of what you might say a stand-up comedian should be.
Yeah. There's, like, a lot of physicality in your set and the way, like, you tell stories, like, how do you sort of work on, like, are those moments something that you've gotta work on, like you work on the delivery of a joke and the beats, or does that sort of come a bit more naturally in a sense? Like, how do you work on those bits?
Nah, I don't work on it. I just
Okay.
do it. It's just what I'm
Just
like.
yeah.
If I were to not be sitting down and you and I were in a room, if the moment came for me to like activate my body, like I just that's just what I'm like. And generally, like I don't like to overwork anything.
Mm.
And it
Mhm.
like while a lot of people do, like it's almost like they're creating a piece of music. Um, I don't I don't tend to say the same things
Mm.
the same way. There's like a couple of moments in the special where I said something in a cadence that I had said it in before, and
Yeah.
those are kind of like connector moments, but when I watch it, I think those are um the least alive moments.
Mm.
Like yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm imagining, every time you've done that show, you haven't knocked the mic stand over and it's rolled off the stage like that?
No, never. I do like to knock the mic
Yeah.
stand over, but it's
Yeah.
never during that time. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there there will be times during my own comedy where I see that I'm being kind of a brat or I'm being indulgent or I'm just kind of being a little asshole. And I like to really stamp that into the truth by being mildly irreverent and destructive by knocking over the mic stand. It's a pleasure that I've enjoyed forever.
Mm.
But um I didn't I've never performed on like a perfectly circular stage before. As I was just telling someone else, like I just didn't. It never crossed my mind that it would roll off the stage.
Yeah. No,
And weirdly, I watched it happen. Like sometimes, like in the times that I've rewatched that footage, I'm like, why didn't I grab it?
yeah.
But sometimes you need that. You just kind of need to watch
Yeah.
everything. You need to watch things not just fall apart, but like you're not watching for the destruction, but you're, at least for me, like I'm watching for the change
Yeah.
and then the opportunity to try to figure out how to keep going.
Yeah. And like, I guess the curiosity too. Like, I wanna see what
Yeah.
happens. Like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
um so to finish off, Jenny, I was wondering, like, on Parks and Rec, you and Ben Schwartz bounced off each other so well, and just
Mm.
like the way you sort of, I feel like, we're able to serve each other in a way. When you're a stand-up and you're there just performing on your own, how does, does the audience and you need to serve each other in a similar way that you would if you were with an acting partner? Or is it
I think it's different because an acting partner, like you have you have an objective together, which is to execute the performance and the scene and the information in the scene and the energy of the scene. But I will say, for me on stage, it feels like there's the me that's talking, and then there's a sort of like another watcher, like a version of me that's watching myself
mm,
that I'm entertaining and pleasing. And if I'm connected to the part of me that is really, really aware of what I'm doing, I sort of perform in a way for myself, to please that version of myself that is there. But then there's also like I feel like crowds of people are often like there's certainly they conjure within themselves an energy, and sometimes like it almost feels like a crowd has a persona because you can sense its preferences so much.
mm,
And I like to fully give in to the idea that their response will lead me through my choices in the set. And so that is really different than performing with
yeah,
another person, because also like the crowd might have an energy or a feeling, but they don't have a specific identity, and you don't have
mm,
um a relationship with them the way that, you know, I have with
Yeah.
Ben Schwartz, who's like not just like a performer that I deeply admire, but that like a friend that I want to support and please.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Jenny, thank you so much for chatting with us today. All the best luck with the Emmy Awards for Seasoned Professional. People can
Thank
follow
you.
the Emmy Awards at goldderby.com. And just, that was great. It was so lovely to chat. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for your time. Bye. See you in the
Right.
future.